It's Sonelias and welcome to this Let's Play of Hearts of Iron 4. It's newly released, actually as per the 6th of June. So what we'll be looking at today is actually an introduction to the tutorial. So we'll basically run through part of the tutorial today, just as a starter, just to get a bit of a flavor of the game. And actually the intention is for me to finish the tutorial in due course of time with you. So we're going to go to the single playing options here. We're going to go to the tutorial. And the tutorial actually takes you that you need to go through in order to get yourself set up for the game. So the tutorial has got a number of different steps. It goes through 15 key stages, as you can see on the screen at the moment. First thing it does, it explains about the key controls of on the screen. So basically holding the middle mouse cursor to basically pan around the screen. I prefer to use the edges, but that's everybody's personal preference that they can put on there. Zooming in and out with the scroll wheel. But as you can see, as you zoom in, you get a lot more detail to be shown. 3D images of the actual military units and so forth. Now, a little bit about Hearts of Iron 4. It is a grand strategy game. And Hearts of Iron 4 is more in line with the traditional grand strategy games that Paradox has been creating thus far. And I mean traditional because if I look at all the key games that have been releasing, like for example Crusader Kings, Europa Universalis, Hearts of Iron 3, 2, 1, etc. But also Victoria 1 and 2. Those are all historically based games that basically take or play at a certain point in time. And you're actually you're playing in those historical scenarios and basically trying to change history. Now, one of their new releases, Sonelias, is another game I'm basically doing a Let's Play for, is quite different to that. You're basically playing really more in a civilization kind of setting. You're starting off with one solar system, with one planet really, and you want to basically take it from there to expand, and then you meet other civilizations. So this is a more traditional setting, a known world, but of course there are key factors that will be different for everybody. Let me minimize the actual tutorial for a second, because we got some objectives that we basically need to deal with. There are some wiki links in here, there's other links to other components in here. But basically I'm going to go through those objectives at the bottom here. So the first one is basically military factories in use, civilian factories in use, naval dockyards in use, setting a national focus, as well as divisions in queue for deployment. And of course some technology research I need to get started. Now at the top of the screen itself you see some key areas like research, you'll see diplomacy, you'll see trade, construction, production, recruitment and deployment, and ultimately logistics here. But really what we're going to focus on during this particular Let's Play recording is the actual reminders at the top of the screen. Now one of the key things to bear in mind as well, at the top right you'll see our time focus. We are starting this on the 1st of January 1936 at 12 o'clock. So really you're starting at the very beginning of that particular year. The game is paused at the moment. You see that by the fact that basically that bar at the top is flashing as well. But we're going to go through each of these individual bits here at the top. Going to go through them one by one to make sure we all understand what's going on in there. So the first one is actually our research. Now again, the tutorial hints come up at this particular point in time. So we have basically got 4 slots for the Italians here to allocate towards research. And particularly early on in the game, since we're starting in 1936, we want to focus in on an area. And actually the game is already highlighting those for me. Here, industry as well as engineering. I want to basically get these researched as quickly as I can. So I got 4 slots. There are other countries that got less slots. There's countries with more slots. But again, the number of slots can be influenced by your national focuses, as well as some of the research technologies that we do. So we've got 4 slots, and I basically want to use them mainly to basically get our factory tools up here, which basically increase our productivity, product efficiency. I'm going to do one more here in terms of construction. I want to be able to build better, faster my factories. But I also want to basically do a little bit in here in terms of either land doctrine. Is there anything being suggested here? It's suggesting that one over there. Now luckily I can actually move that hint section away from there. Grand plan, maximum planning is increased by 30%. Alternatively, it's suggesting I go here and actually do the support weapons. And actually we'll be focusing on the support weapons, which will take me 141 days to research. So in that sense, it's quite different from what we had in Hearts of Iron 3, where we basically could invest points into different things, one of which was actual research. So I've allocated all the research. The 4 slots are all full. The first one will finish in about 94 days, which will give me a boost in terms of research time. Closing that one, let's move on to the next one. It's Ethiopia. We've got a war with Ethiopia at the moment. I'm going to skip that one for the moment. I'm just going to focus on free civilian factories. Now we are basically focusing it on producing consumer goods. What I also want to do, I want to basically build more civilian factories in here as well. So at the moment I still got about 12 factories that I can actually allocate towards that. So I'm going to be focusing on building some civilian factories here. I will build some in Sardinia, some Sicily. I will build some in Campania. Arbuzzo. I will build some in this particular province here. Now there's 2 provinces here that are already fully built up in terms of where they could be. I'm going to build one in South Tyrol as well as in that place there. I've got some extra slots here which I'll also allocate. Now, as you can see, I actually can allocate more than the 20 factories that I basically had in terms of its usage. It's first going to focus in on the first one, then going to move on to the next one. So it's basically going to go through all of those allocated options in there. Now I can actually also build some in Tripoli. Should I do that or not? Now some of these are actually got 0 out of 0. And if you look at the Italians, they also got some territory down here. Some Somaliland as well as Eritrea. I'm just going to see, I think I'm going to leave it as where it stands at the moment. I could of course build some dockyards as well, but that looks to be fine for the moment. I'm not sure about how much time it will take to construct. Is there an indicator for that? It will take me 115 days, it says. Days until next building, 115 days. So yeah, it will take a little bit of time for that to complete. Again, these hints will give me an indicator. Basically all free civilian factories will be constructing new buildings according to their order of construction queue. So the fact that I'm building more actual factories here will actually increase that number of available factories here at the top. And we have a construction speed limited export, so we basically get a boost in terms of the time on here. Okay, focusing in on the next one, we got free military factories. Now there are a few hints on here already as to what we should be doing. So if I go towards my built infantry and artillery equipment, I think I'm required to build some additional support weapons here. Support equipment, I'm going to focus in on that. I'm also going to focus in on the actual weapons themselves. I will not only need them for new troops, I will also need them for existing troops to actually be able to maintain their current levels of weapons. Now, if I look at this closely, I will see that there's little factory icons on here as well. And each of those little factory icons indicates how many military factories I'm assigning towards the production of this particular type of equipment. It also tells me what resources are required to be able to build this. I'm going to basically do some artillery here as well as an addition. Upgrade need, they will require about 2700. So total need is filled. I'm going to see where I can take this in terms of the numbers. Let me put 3 on there. It doesn't seem to actually make any difference in terms of the numbers I'm getting down there. So it doesn't tell me exactly how many I'm building at the moment on a daily basis. If I go and hover my mouse cursor over here, these numbers actually do seem to change in order of how many factories I allocate to there. Now at the moment there is also a level of efficiency. We are basically have base efficiency of 10%, and that will increase by 1.7% up to a maximum of 70% efficiency. Okay, so that will have an impact upon how efficient they are in production. And we're actually using some of this equipment straight away for upgrades. As you can see now, I can actually change the order in which these items appear on here by using these priority icons here. So if I basically got more factories allocated than I actually got factories, it'll first build the equipment that I've really wanted to get done before it's going to basically do the next one. That's also coming up with suggestions in terms of airplanes. I would like to get some close air support planes built as well. Now there are some items in shortage, like for example oil is indicated on here, which will give me a reduced speed of production. It's also talking about rubber being in shortage, but I've got enough aluminum in my own territory, it looks like, to be able to support this production. Tungsten I also have, it looks like, which is good. I can also invest some efforts into tanks. It's telling me exactly how many are basically being built at the moment. Now anything I'm not really using as such will be stockpiled by the system. Up to certain limits. Okay. And again, I should see some of those statistics up here. I've got a production efficiency cap. I've got output, limited exports, boosts in there, factory bomb vulnerabilities, how vulnerable to bombs are we, etc, etc. So all those kind of key indicators are again at the top here. It also basically highlights all those key resources for me, how many I've got, how many I can actually use, etc, etc, but also where I've got shortages. So at the moment I've got a shortage of 2 oil, which is basically due to the fact that I'm trying to use them, but I don't have those particular resources at the moment. I probably want to invest some more into that equipment there, as well as maybe into that. So in terms of my factory numbers, I've allocated 12 out of the 19 at the moment. Maybe a little bit more into the actual tanks. I probably want to invest a little bit as well into the motorization here. I'm just going to put a basic production queue up for that. And I'm also going to basically focus a little bit on aircraft production. So that leaves me with a surplus of an additional 3 in terms of my factories. I'm just going to allocate that for the moment towards artillery. As well as more support equipment here. As well as one final factory being allocated towards the infantry equipment. Now, as you can see, I've also got my naval dockyards. I've not done anything with them yet. So that's the next items I can basically start allocating in here. I can then also indicate how many I want to produce. So I will need some convoys. They are used for basically moving resources around. They're also used to ferry troops around and for performing some naval invasions. So I'm going to build some of those. I'm going to build, let's say, 3 of those. No, let's actually let's leave that at infinity at the moment. Again, oil is that required for that production as well. Other ships I want to basically focus in on are things like, well, let's invest a little bit of effort into some submarines. Now, which ones are actually best for me to focus in on? Don't see a massive difference in between these two. Fire range 6, fire range 6, evasion 40 and evasion 40. Torpedo attack power 6.4 and 6.0. Maximum range 5,000, and this one's got a maximum range of 5,000 as well. So it looks like the Serene class is slightly better in terms of the damage output. So I'm going to basically build that in 4 of my naval dockyards, and then basically going to use 4 of my naval dockyards for, well, let's actually put 2 on there for the moment being. It's 1.25 per month, so not per year like it is for the submarines. Now I still want to invest a little bit more in other ships. So let's say I want to build one more battleship here. I can actually decommission some ships, interesting. So is that indicating I got those ships already? I guess so. Just built one battleship and I'm going to invest 3 into there, which leaves me with an additional 2, which I'm just going to allocate towards destroyers for the moment. So let's have a brief look at these destroyers here. This one does a damage of 2 against air, and I got naval firepower of 2, 2.3 against air, and naval firepower of 2.3 and 2.0. So I'm going to basically invest into that one with 2. of my naval dockyards. Now at the moment what you see me having done in here, I've allocated the exact number, my apologies, of factories or dockyards that I basically have got actually at my disposal. I could allocate more, but basically it then looks at the number of units I basically wanted to build to see basically when it could actually start utilizing the production lines for other items. Again, there's some national focus as well. This is a new feature in here compared to Hearts of Iron 3. It really allows me to get some additional focus on some key technological progress or key features, key benefits. Now at the moment I'm in a war with Ethiopia, and this really within 70 days allows me to get some boosts in terms of infrastructure there in Eritrea and Somaliland. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to choose this one for the moment. There are other ones like Mare Nostrum, there's the Army Primary, but because we're already at war there, this little boost will basically help me out a little bit here, which also ultimately will lead to an additional research slot, which will be very, very welcome and very, very helpful. So I'm going to basically go down this path, I would think. Yeah. Now, it doesn't stop me from doing the other paths. Now, there are a few instances which are basically mutually exclusive. Let's have a look at the focus again briefly for a second. Where is that? I guess on the flag. Yeah, so if I look on here, let me just close the hint for a second. So this little icon here basically says that these two are mutually exclusive as such. Okay, so I've started that particular one. Perfect. There's nothing in the world history in terms of any world tension yet. So I don't need any of that. Now what else have I got going on in here? I got the war, and I got no divisions in terms of training set up at the moment. So I'm going to invest some effort into actually training or setting up additional units. So I want some additional infantry units. Let me have a brief look at actually editing this one here. I will need army experience to be able to do this, to be able to change this. I haven't got any army experience at the moment. I will gain that as I basically go into battle over here. My convoys will basically give you an indication of how many I've got, which is good. Very, very useful information. Estimated production. So at the moment there, in terms of the composition, it talks exactly about how many units of what type are in there. I can add additional components to here. Gives me the overall combat stats for this unit type. I can't change it because of course I don't have that army experience yet at the moment. But I do want to basically train some of these units here. Now I can choose where I do want to do that training at this point in time. So let me choose a location here. So I want to basically allocate this to, let's say I want to do that over here. Doesn't make any difference. I don't see any particular difference in here. It talks about number of people in that particular region, it looks like. Yeah. I guess I'm wrong, looking at the wrong tutorial. Nope. Any help? Okay, no. Not what I'm looking for. Not diplomacy. I was trying to tell it to build some additional units. So production, that's not the one I'm looking for. Recruitment and deployment. No location set. I want to set this to be deployed, let's say there. So it then basically allows me to see how many I want to basically create of that particular type. I want to also train a tank division. In actual fact, I want to build a few more of these. Sorry, not the Alpine one. I want to build more of the regular infantry. So again, I need to set a location for this again as well. Campani, and I'm going to set another location for this one at Tuscany. So I guess for the moment being that will be sufficient. I'm basically investing into upgrades here as well. I can choose the priority of each of these individual items. So I want to basically do this in terms of the reinforcement getting the highest priority. And then the other items are getting lesser priority on here. So perfect. I've got insufficient resources, which we were aware of already. I can basically go into trade, and I can trade some of the production facilities I've got for getting some of those additional resources. I don't want to do that for the moment. I do want to go towards my war with Ethiopia. I guess what we're going to do is we're going to call this a day, and we will basically go into that piece of the tutorial on the next recording. So thanks very much for joining me for this particular session. It's the very, very first of this Let's Play of Heart of Iron 4, where we're going through the tutorial, and hopefully you'll join me for the next one. Thank you very much for joining me. Bye.